Good morning. Today I want to speak to you about the pros and the cons of a plant based diet. And you're probably thinking, are there any cons to a plant based diet? Well, I think it's all relative. And after seeing thousands of patients across the United States over the last several years, I have a pretty good handle on what are pros and are cons. And I guess it really is a matter of how you look at it. So if you change how you look at something, the thing you're looking at changes, right? But let's pull up my notes here on what exactly do I mean by pros and cons. Well, first of all, let's talk about the pros because I'm a big fan of starting with a positive note. And I think so many of the things that you may have noticed if you eat a plant based diet or if you have family members that have started a plant based diet, you will see their health improve. And I'm going to go over just a few of those things that you'll see. First of all, you're going to have improved heart health, right? So plant-based diets are rich in fiber, vitamins, and minerals, right? They're low in saturated fats, which are one of the instigators of heart disease. And all of those things are very helpful. And it's shown in studies that people who eat a plant predominant diet, like vegetarians, have lower risk of heart disease. So this is a no-brainer. When I see someone change to a whole food plant-based diet, we see reduced cholesterol, we see reduced hypertension, and we have to stop medications very quickly. And that is one thing that you don't learn in medical school is how to deprescribe medications. So it's an art and a science. I have my protocols now that work pretty well. So if you're thinking about going on a plant-based diet and you're on medications specifically for hypertension, please be mindful that you may need to stop your medications very quickly. One of the things that I would look for are two things. One, if you see blood pressure consistently under 120 on a daily basis, or you're symptomatic upon standing dizziness or getting up out of bed, and you now have fatigue that you didn't have before, that may be an indication that your blood pressure is too low, and please speak to your doctor about that. Next is weight management. So weight management is fairly no-brainer. I've seen patients, one of mine lost 350 pounds. Yes, 350 pounds. And I've seen patients lose 5 pounds to 350 pounds. And it really depends on what the person is looking for, what their needs are as far as activity. And, weight is just one measure of health. You could be 200 pounds, but be very lean and muscular, have a different, the same BMI that someone who is, let's say, obese. So again, but weight management is something that I do see a lot of people struggling with. And so that's one thing that they will come to a whole food plant-based diet. I am about to launch Psychology of Weight Loss because it's more than just the diet. There's so many things that are going on up here to really help someone stay consistent on a healthy eating pattern, regardless of whatever that pattern looks like for you. And once you understand the tools of the psychology of weight loss, it's much easier to stay on track and not relapse in the old eating habits. But that's besides the point. That's a really fun course to build, by the way. But basically, why does it work? Well, first of all, you'll see plant-based diets are typically lower in calories and fat than diets that include a lot of meat and dairy. And I'm less concerned so much about, the fat will take care of itself. We do need healthy fats. I feel like some people in the plant-based world are very fat phobic. You need good, healthy fats. And I'll just share a story of myself. When I went to a whole food plant-based diet 12 years ago, when I first started, I went very low fat, cut out all nuts and seeds and oils and everything. I'm still oil free now, but I did everything. And at first I was okay, but then I started to feel really down and fatigued. And I just what is going on? And it wasn't because I was losing weight or anything. As I started looking at my dietary patterns, man, I need some good healthy fats. I was eating a very low fat diet. And for myself at that time, I decided to add back in nuts and seeds, and that was a game changer for me. And most of my patients, I do counsel to maintain at least a quarter to half a cup of nuts and seeds on a daily basis, depending on their current weight status, what they're trying to do. I do continue to push an oil-free diet, especially in someone who's trying to lose weight, because this is liquid fat. It's very easily stored and very easy to overconsume calories. Now, if someone is healthy and they choose to consume oils, that's fine. I would just advise to stay away from the high saturated fat oils like coconut oil and things like that. All right. You also see a reduced risk of certain cancers. For example, colon cancer is a big one. There's just so many antioxidants and phytochemicals found in plant foods that it's just a no-brainer that your immune system is going to be better adept at getting hold of those cells that are going awry, that are the nidus or the start of cancer. And so we really want to be able to feed your body all the things that it needs for that immune system to go in and detect cancer cells and then get them out. And next is diabetes prevention and management. By far one of my favorite things to work with patients with blood sugars, because I love continuous glucose monitors, as you guys may know. I run a glucose mastermind, which will be launching in probably another few weeks, my next one. And it is amazing. I have patients' blood sugars drop 100 and 150 points on average within a few weeks. They lose weight. One in particular person has lost 30 pounds. So again, diabetes, remember the cause of diabetes is lipotoxicity or insulin resistance, right? So when you think about type 2 diabetes, when you put out the fire, you have to go to the root cause, right? So instead of just giving medications and trying to manage numbers, what we want to do is go to the root cause, and it's typically weight loss and making you insulin sensitive by removing the foods that cause inflammation and cause, the lipotoxicity, which is primarily the saturated fats. And so when we do this, blood sugars can improve very quickly. The first time I realized how quickly I need to lower insulin with diabetics is I had a patient, this was early on, 12 years ago, and we had to stop 60 units of insulin in 3 days. That's 72 hours. I've never in my life seen anything like that. And it made a very clear impression on me as a physician. I need to be very mindful of what I'm doing here, because this is a potent prescription, this plant-based diet, especially for my type 2 diabetics. Now, type 1 diabetics can also see some improvement, and that could be because, one, they're requiring less insulin because they are also becoming more insulin, quote unquote, sensitive, because they are still at risk for becoming insulin resistant and requiring more. So, for example, if you'll see a type 1 diabetic or someone with type 1 diabetes actually change their diet to a whole food plant-based diet, you may see upwards of a third to half of their insulin usage decrease occur. So that's a really powerful statement of even someone who has type 1 diabetes can benefit from a whole food plant-based diet. And again, I think this one is also fairly straightforward, and you can't really argue with its environmental stability, right? So we have a lower environmental footprint than diets that are high in animal-based foods. They require less land, less water, and energy to produce. So I am by no means an expert in this field, but if you read the data, it seems to definitely be pointing in that direction. So something has to shift. Next is digestive health, right? So high fiber content is just good for your gut, your little microbiome, that little gut, the little guys in there are just jumping down and having a blast. Now, when you switch over to a plant-based diet, you may notice a few things change. And that may be the expulsions that are coming out the other end. That will improve with time. You do need to be patient with yourself. You may need to back off some of the more resistant starch foods, like some of the beans. Maybe go start with lentils and then move into some of the harder beans. And so the way I would gauge that is if you have beans that require soaking. So let's say lentils don't require soaking. Those are probably the easiest to start with. And then as you transition into the more darker beans, like black beans, that would probably be the last I'd add into your diet. In addition to this, I will be doing a workshop, Plant-Based 101, a masterclass in how to start and sustain a healthy whole food plant-based diet in the end of the month. You can sign up for our email list on drmarbus.com and be the first to know about it. Or you can join the Healing Kitchen, and it's free to our members. And that is also at the drmarbus.com website. There we meet every single week live. I'm answering medical questions. Brittany Girardi, who's my partner in the Healing Kitchen, she makes these delicious foods. We do I do a workshop every single month. You have access to all the past workshops, which includes osteoporosis, plant-based labs, insulin resistance, weight loss. And then we have expert workshops that you all have access to. We've had Brenda Davis, Dr. Joel Kahn on cholesterol. We've had Dr. Rock Jawatney, who just did one recently on breath work and meditation. So we are trying to bring some amazing stuff to you in the Healing Kitchen. Okay, small plug there, moving on. And I think finally for the pros, animals, right? So at the end of the day, there's no suffering with the whole plant-based diet from the standpoint of the other beings in this world. So, which is something that has definitely grown in my heart since starting a whole food plant-based diet. Now let's look at the cons. All right, so when you look at the cons from a doctor perspective, I'm looking at a few different things. So if someone is thriving on a whole food plant-based diet, they're probably doing a few things on a regular basis. One, they're eating enough calories to sustain their activities and a healthy weight. That is key. So how do we do that? Well, we base our meals around starchy vegetables, grains, and legumes or beans or lentils. And the reason is these are more calorically dense foods, which will provide more energy for you to do what you want to do. Then you throw in your veggies and your fruits. So when you do that, that will typically give you a wide variety of foods. It'll give you a wide variety of phytonutrients. And for the most part, you're going to be doing just fine. Now, there are some nuances for different types of individuals. And this is why I would say it'd be great to seek guidance from a plant-based physician or a physician who understands the value of certain things that you need to be paying attention to. Number one, the supplement that is a no-brainer for me and is a non-negotiable is B12. Most of my patients require 500 to 1,000 micrograms daily. Now, I'm not saying that is everyone, but many people have decreased absorption of B12, or they forget to take it, or they may be on medications that also decrease absorption of B12. So paying attention to your B12 status is very important. When you have B12 deficiency, you can have long-term neurological damage. So really paying attention to that is your number one thing to do on a plant-based diet. And does that mean that it's not the best diet? No, it just means that you need B12. It's just what it is. There's no judgment here. It's just you need B12. And I'm going to be very matter of fact. I don't have any emotional attachment to this one way or the other. It's just what it is, right? So I do have some patients come in and like, I thought this diet was it and I wouldn't need it. I'm like, well, it is what it is. There's so many benefits to this. And so few cons, it's a no-brainer for me to push everyone to a plant-based diet. Okay, getting off my soapbox. A few other things that I do see some individuals might struggle with is iron. If you're a menstruating female and you're not looking at those dark green leafy vegetables and certain legumes that are iron-rich foods, you may be losing more iron than you can replace via your food. So that is something to be checked for. And I would check your iron and your ferritin. We want ferritin to be above 50. Next would be zinc might be an issue. I've only seen this a few times. I would say it's probably less than 1% of individuals, but it is something to be mindful of, especially if you're nut phobic, meaning that you're not wanting to eat these nuts and seeds. I would really hone in on pumpkin seeds and things like that. Make sure you're getting enough, and you should be sufficient in your zinc status. And then there is the omega-3s. There are 3 supplements that I take every single day without fail. My B12, my vitamin D, because I've checked, even when I was outside, I just don't make vitamin D very well. And that's even without, any type of sun block. As in, I do take some algae omega-3s at a lower dose. I consider it an insurance policy. And I have mixed feelings about this. I think there's probably some way of measuring this in the future that our status, there is no RDA on omegas. There's not a reliable way of seeing what's being stored in our tissues. So I appreciate that. But at the end of the day, I'm not willing to risk my brain health or my heart health. Now, I probably would have been deficient in omegas even on the animal plant-based because I didn't like fish, never ate a lot of fish. So again, these are just some simple insurance policy way to do it. So you just take the algae omegas, which comes from the plants. You're not hurting the fish. So there's that. I like Complement. Complement's a great brand if you want to check that out. Terraseed is also another good one. Next, there is some concern about protein, right? So when you think about protein, people are like, oh, you can get plenty of protein on plant-based diet. Yes, a well-planned plant-based diet. All plants have all amino acids. Believe it or not, they really do. If you look at the data, all plants have all the amino acids. There just might be varying amounts of lower ones in certain foods. So again, we go back to eating variety and enough calories to be sufficient. And even then, depending on the individual, it depends on how much they're absorbing. So if you are looking to make sure you're getting enough protein, I would say take your ideal body weight, make that into kilograms, and then do 1 gram per kilo at the minimum. And then go upwards to 1.2 to 1.4, especially if you're lifting weights and trying to maintain muscle mass and lose fat. So those are some things and some nuances. And I've absolutely seen patients who are too low on protein on a plant-based diet. And how did this happen? Well, this is typically my elderly females that are very tiny. They followed some guru and decided they were going to eat just one particular food or a pound of this food. And then guess what? They're not hungry. They're not eating the other types of food. This is being too restrictive. So again, this is why it's important to look at and speak to someone who knows what they're doing, knows what to look for, and that absolutely can be any of these amazing plant-based doctors. And I'm happy to see you as well at drmarvis.com. Next con, social and dining challenges. This is what it is. Again, I think this can only be a challenge if you choose to make it a challenge. And I know this sounds like, what are you talking about, Dr. Marvis? It's hard. I can't. My family doesn't want to eat this way. None of my friends eat this way. Guess what? Not a lot of mine do either. But it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy being with those folks. What this is you've chosen to make this a problem. What this is just a challenge. And you can move around on how to fix this challenge, right? Or answer the challenge. There's lots of different solutions. But if you continue to resonate on it and just build restriction and friction because this is just a problem, my friends don't do this, it's not even worth it. Well, that's yourself. The problems come in your head. Nobody else is saying this is a problem. I've literally been doing this for 12 years, traveled across this country and a few places around the world and stuck to a plant-based diet. Now, was it always ideal plant-based diet? No, but that's okay. Again, we did the best we could. Where I draw the line, I will not be eating animal products. There's that. So what can you do? Well, a few different things. Speak to your family and friends. Let's choose somewhere that you can both enjoy meals and be satisfied. You can have a potluck. You can do all sorts of things. So again, there are always solutions. You just got to get out of your head that it's a problem and just look at it as, okay, this is a challenge and here, this is how I can fix it. Next is the potential to overconsume processed vegan junk food. It's really easy to move to, the Impossible Burgers and the Beyond Meats and all that. Now, these might be okay transitional foods, but they're not healthier for you in the sense of long-term health. So when we look at someone who has heart disease, diabetes, these foods are high in saturated fats, and we do not want anyone consuming those on a regular basis. Occasionally, that's fine. Cost. Now, depending on where you live and what foods you're choosing, you may see this at a higher cost, especially if you're trying to do all organic. Instead, what I'd say was look at your dried beans and your grains. These are cheap foods typically, and then try to buy what's in season. There you're going to see a lower cost. Now, altogether, this should be lower than an animal-based type diet. My food bill feeding when my boys were still at home and my husband and my daughter went down $400 a month 12 years ago. Granted, food costs and stuff have changed, but I still think that it certainly can be a savings to your pocketbook if you determining on what type of foods. And then, of course, there is an adaptation period. That's the final con, I'd say, because just from the palate sense, if we're used to eating a standard American diet and these highly processed, ultra processed foods that are just loaded with salt, sugar, oils, and fats, and they have driven your brain, your dopamine is just constantly going and you are hooked to these things, there is going to be an adaptation phase. But guess what? It is so worth it. You get more energy, you get better health, you get savings to your pocketbook. I truly believe this. You'll have longevity. And again, reversal of certain chronic diseases, and savings your money. So there you have it. I've given you my pros and my cons and my thoughts on those. Again, these are all relative. If you have more questions about a plant-based diet, feel like joining us on the Healing Kitchen. Check it out and join our email list, and you'll know about the Plant-Based 101 Masterclass. I'm going to be dumping my 12 years of experience as a plant-based physician on top of just being a physician and just living this and seeing thousands of patients across the United States. You guys, it'll be live. You can answer me any questions. I'm going to be creating an amazing ebook for you. You don't want to miss it. Anyway, so I hope to see you there. You guys have a great day. And thanks as always for being with me. I want to give you a present back for spending some amazing time with me of peace, joy, and love. I'm sending to you. And I do really appreciate you guys spending time with me because I know you could be elsewhere. All right. Thanks, everyone.